This is Until All Are Free. I'm your host, Preston Goff. Hey, before we get started today, I want to take a minute to just thank you. I learned this week that Until All Are Free is now the #1 nonprofit podcast in Switzerland, of all places. Shout out if you're listening from Switzerland. Thanks for being a part of the community. We're #2 in Canada, so thank you. I'm sending all my gratitude and love to my neighbors and friends and brothers and sisters in Canada. And hey, maybe introduce it to someone else. Let's see if we can find that #1 spot. We've cracked the top 20 in the US, which is a great thing. We have previously held the #1 title for nonprofit podcasts in the US. So, I feel like we can get there again. And all of this is possible because of people like you, listener, who say, I want to be a part of this global movement, this community that does not stand for the human rights abuses that we see taking place every day. You're choosing to lean in. You're choosing to look and to hold space for those stories and to bear witness to them. And I'm so grateful to have you a part of this journey. That being said, I'm excited to be welcoming Mr. Edwin Desamour to the podcast today. Edwin is a dear friend of mine, as you'll hear in the podcast episode. He's also a board member of the Exodus Road. But the reason I wanted to bring him into this podcast space today is because of his unique experiences on the ground in a community called North Kensington in a suburb of Philadelphia. For anyone who perhaps is from the Philadelphia or Pennsylvania area, or even New England at large, I think the North Kensington community has a bit of a reputation for a history of human rights abuses and challenges and vulnerabilities facing the families and the young people in this diverse community. And Edwin is the executive director of the Lighthouse Foundation, which is a over 100-year-old nonprofit organization that is bringing a very unique set of services to families, to young people, to their community. And it is turning the tide on what it looks like for these young people to be planning their futures and avoiding all of the dangers and the vulnerabilities that you're going to hear us talk about today. So with all that said, let's jump in. Here's my conversation with Edwin. Welcome to Edwin Desamour, who's a close friend of mine and someone that I have just been absolutely remarkably inspired by and challenged by as I consider what the everyday role is of people just like me to help affect justice in the world. Edwin has a role on the board at the Exodus Road, and we'll get into that in part as a part of this episode today. But I'm excited to have you, Edwin. Thanks for being willing to come on the podcast. And I'd love to just give you a chance to maybe start by telling us a little bit about yourself and where you live, what any part of your story that you want to share, who you are, what you do on a daily basis.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. And it's also an honor to be your friend and sharing this journey alongside you and the team, the Exodus Road team, and many others. My name is Edwin Desamour from out of Philadelphia. From an area in North Philadelphia, there is a nickname that folks call it. In the Kensington area that I'm from, they call it the Badlands, but I like to represent the folks that are down there and call it the Goodlands, because there are good people despite the many issues and the things that they're dealing with down there. But there are so many great, good people and beautiful people that are from that community. So anytime I introduce myself anywhere, I want to make sure that folks understand there are good people down there. Wherever there are good people, it's considered good lands because they're stepping on it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful word right there. Tell me a little bit about, for the average listener, if they don't live in North Philly and Kensington, tell me about the people that live in your community. Like, what makes them good? And tell me about even their makeup and demographics and what it looks like in that area.
Yeah, pretty much it's a diverse community, predominantly Hispanic, but diverse from all ethnicities and races, and folks are there. So the culture is pretty unique because you could be Black, white, or Asian, but folks are familiar with the Spanish lingo, the Spanish food, the music. So it's kind of a unique culture of everyone in one spot that are there. Just beautiful all the way around. When you talk about the music, the food, the culture, folks love to gather together and just laugh and socialize and talk, because despite anything that's going on, folks find a way to still smile of the everyday trials that they're dealing with in their community. So to me, that's a powerful moment, right? Because, folks are throwing so many obstacles at them in their lives, especially down there when it comes to work or trying to find employment or someone you lost a loved one, trying to pay your bills. A lot of times you would think, well, how do you have time to smile? And people down there always find the time to still find the smile and help each other out and support one another. So it's still a beautiful place. But at the same time, Kensington is known for being one of the hottest areas and one of the opioid epidemic of the world. It's overridden with it. So folks are trying to survive and live surrounded by the opioid epidemic. And what comes with the opioid epidemic, violence, room for trafficking, just so many things that take place. And a lot of our young folks could be vulnerable to what's out there in the area.
Yeah. We talk on this podcast a lot about this being a space where we talk openly about the human rights abuses or injustices that are facing people around the world. And we highlight even those who don't turn away from it, who turn towards it. And so I want to kind of take our conversation a bit there today, because I think certainly every community around the US, around the world, has its human rights violations and challenges that it's trying to overcome. But you've kind of hinted at some of these. You mentioned the opioid epidemic, some of these heightened injustices or perhaps more, difficult vulnerabilities that are trying to be overcame by the residents of Kensington. And I wonder if you might share a little bit more about, even for you as someone who's been in the Kensington community for so long, how have you seen human rights abuses or injustices play out? And then what has been the response and what works, and what are you seeing even through the foundation that you are the executive director of?
Yeah, most definitely. I don't know if I mentioned that I'm the executive director of an organization, one of the oldest nonprofits in Philadelphia, called The Lighthouse, Inc., 1893. Yeah. It was founded in 1893 by a woman by the name of Esther Kelly. I always love to mention her because when you think about in 1893, did a woman have any rights? Could they vote? Could they own property? And it starts there, right, with human rights, because she refused to allow that to be a barrier for her. She still wanted to do something in her community and serve people and have people gather. She formed the Lighthouse. She founded the Lighthouse. And to me, that was very powerful. For the things that she was facing, she still did something. And 100 and something years later, her legacy still lives. So me stepping in 5 years ago and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the Lighthouse, and it was not in great condition. So I took a page from her playbook, many pages from her playbook. So a lot of times people think I was doing something new. Oh, wow, what made you come up with these ideas for after school programs or sporting events? I didn't come up with anything. It's going back to the basics about being human, right? And providing an opportunity and helping each other and serving one another. That's one of the reasons stepping into that. And when we talk about injustices, to me, one of my biggest issues that I see in our community, for example, and if you've been down there with us on some rides through Kensington, and we will ride through certain neighborhoods, and you will see just outdoor encampments, the open air drug dealing, so much of that going on. But as we start to ride through the neighborhoods, as we start to get into certain neighborhoods, you see it disappear. You don't see it anymore, right? And you start to think, why is it that folks down there have to tolerate that or put up with that, but other neighborhoods don't?
Yeah.
What is the difference? And to me, that is a violation. Why is it that our kids have to sometimes step in the streets to walk to school and dodge traffic because the pavements are full of needles and folks that are passed out or laying around with tents on the sidewalks? And a lot of times our folks will see that, and when you try to get them removed, there are lawyers or different people that will, a lot of politics come into play, and people were like, well, you can't move them. You can't touch them. They have a right to be there. And I was thinking maybe, but what about the people that live there? What about our children that have to be exposed to all this? So we're just trying to figure out what is it? What is that about? But meanwhile, while we're trying to deal with that when it comes to politics, we need to start to find and create spaces for our kids to finally go somewhere. And this is one of the reasons that the Lighthouse exists. So we have a 15-acre field where kids come on out. We have a small petting zoo,
which is remarkable, right in the middle of Philly. Let me just say, I remember the first time that I came and visited the field and was just dumbfounded by this like sanctuary of open space. Not to mention all that you've done with it, which I'd love to hear about. So sorry to interrupt. Tell us more about the field.
No, it's all good. We love to call it an oasis in the midst of chaos.
Yeah.
Where folks get to come out and it's nothing but greenery. There's grass. Kids could take off their shoes and have their bare feet touch the grass. Not just the kids, the adults. You don't feel like you're in North Philadelphia. You feel like you're in the country somewhere because of all the greenery. So we have so many sporting events, after school programs, community events, anything to keep our community and our kids busy, but a place to be where they could just say, just breathe without worrying about stepping outside and stepping on a needle or seeing some violence going on in the neighborhood, because those good people deserve a place to really get some rest and feel safe and secure. So the Lighthouse is real big on providing that space. If you look at the name, the Lighthouse, right? When boats are lost or trying to find their way home, it's that beacon of hope. So we want to be that beacon of hope for a community.
Take me into that space for just a moment. So I think for the audience, you hear this thing like a 15-acre plot of land, like in the middle of Philly. Like, it's hard to describe just how truly disarming it is, and like a breath of fresh air to pull on to that field. And so I want you've done this probably thousands of times. Picture that you're driving in to the entrance of Lighthouse. Yeah. What are we going to see? What is the field surrounded by? And like, how does that speak to kind of what you're up against? And what are the activities that are held on the field? What has the team built over the years? Tell me more.
Yeah, most definitely. And thank you for that, because it's very difficult. So I'm going to try my best. Myself, my team, my board members, we always say it's hard to explain to people what we have there. We say you have to visit, you have to step on the field, but we do our best using video and pictures. Yeah, and even that doesn't justify what you feel in the presence that you feel. So just in the beginning, I just want to say, when I first started and I stepped into the Lighthouse, it wasn't in those conditions. It was 15 acres, but it wasn't utilized the way it should be. And there's a fence that separates the Lighthouse field, and on the other side of that fence is a cemetery. So when I first started, I remember walking around trying to figure out what I got myself into. First of all, wow, this is a lot. And I remember walking to that fence, and I remember looking over, and I saw the grass was green. I saw the birds chirping, and I saw families gathering, but they weren't gathering for the right reasons. They were gathering because of death, right? You have people who are being paraded into the cemetery because of drug addiction, violence, suicide, so many different reasons. And I looked over and I said, wait a minute, why does this cemetery, with all the people in it and all the grass and all the birds and all the things that's going on and how clean it looked, why does the cemetery look more alive than the Lighthouse field? And something has to change. So it went, and that was my inspiration right there. I was like, oh, that's my competition. That's my competition right there. And every day, me and my team, we're in a unique position because we have to see the funeral parades every day. We can't be shielded from it. We have to see it and witness it. So it inspires us and pushes us to say, hey, we got more work to do. We're never satisfied with anything. But if you drive into this little cobblestone ramp that we keep there, it's vintage, it's historic. And once you drive in, the first thing you're going to hear is some roosters crowing. You might hear a pig making some noise because he hears there's people around and he wants some treats. So we have a few potbelly pigs. But when you go on in, you'll be greeted by the staff. And to us, that's very important. Being greeted, someone acknowledge you, someone saying hello, you exist. And coming on in, and you might look to the right, there's sports going on, whether it's soccer, baseball, flag football, families walking around. We have shops where we provide an opportunity for small business owners, entrepreneurs to really showcase their talent, showing off their artwork, their baking goods, their domino tables. So you could be able to do a little shopping at the same time.
And you built like full like stalls for this. It's impressive. It looks like a Christmas village.
Yeah, they were actually horse stalls, and we turned them into shops. Went out to the folks the Amish community, they build these horse stalls. And I asked them, I said, hey, is there any way we could take a horse stall and just modify it a little bit? Because I want to be able to do some shops. And they were like, sure, let's make it happen. And it's pretty unique to see that. It gives a different vibe. We also have a building in there that we call the barn. So when you walk inside, you see all the custom wood that is put around the walls. We didn't stain it. The wood is burnt. So it gives it that more vintage look. It's just a beautiful space. We done had, I think, close to 11 weddings so far in that building. Sweet 16s, birthdays, family reunions, you name it, baby showers, where folks could come on out. So it's not your average fancy place, but it gives that barn-like vibe. And you get to come on outside. You see some horses walking around. We have some large horses. We have some miniature horses. We have goats, so many animals, rabbits. So folks don't have to travel out 2 or 3 hours, which used to happen before, just to see animals. But they get to see it right then and there. And there's something about animals that create that type of therapeutic feeling, and seeing the green grass. So it's just so much at one time going on, but it's a beautiful thing. You can see kids playing basketball, and on the other side, the horses are running back and forth watching the kids from the other side of the gate.
And I love, we don't have to go into it in too much detail, but even the animals are kind of getting a second chance. A lot of the animals they kind of come from the community, and they're like rescues. Is that right?
Yeah, it all started because we have 3 different buildings. We have a community center, and our third building was a preschool. And right next door was almost like a butcher shop, but they had live livestock. And folks were complaining about the smell because we had a preschool next door. So I went into the building to see if I could talk to the owner about what can we do about the smell. And I went in with my deputy director, Jillian. And when we went in, we couldn't believe what we were witnessing, how the animals were being slaughtered. And there was a goat ready to be slaughtered at that moment. And I was like, hold on, can I just buy him right now alive? I don't want his meat and nothing like that. And meanwhile, I'm trying to hold Jillian up because he's ready to pass out some scene. It was pretty gory in there. So we end up grabbing 2 goats, a couple of sheep. We didn't have money like that, but we tried to rescue a few chickens, roosters, everybody that we could, all the animals that we could. And that kind of started something from there. And it just kicked off into something beautiful.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about some of the activities, the programming per se that Lighthouse Foundation does with families, with young people. What does that look like, and how are you helping to reshape the futures of young people in Kensington?
Well, one of the biggest ones we have is a STEM program, exposing our kids to STEM. They're learning how to build rockets, robots, learning about nature, how the wind works, just something beautiful for our kids to be exposed to. And we have so many people come on in volunteering to make that happen. A big shout out to Grace and Sky, because they make that happen. They volunteer their time with their staff to come out. So it's a partnership there. We have crochet. I'm learning not to call it yarn class, but crochet is pretty cool because you get to see the parents and the children together. A lot of times in our homes, kids are just on the phones and families are separated. One child is upstairs in their room, parents are downstairs, but this is an opportunity for them to build and make something together and bond and speak to each other. A ceramics class, which is awesome, just exposing our kids to so much. There's so many other different classes, but one of our favorites right now is Influenced, under the guidance of the Exodus Road, providing an opportunity to inform our parents, and not only just our parents, but our children, on the dangers of online exploitation and just how to protect our children and our kids. A lot of times I like to say to folks when we talk to our families, earlier I just expressed how the neighborhoods could be, right? So parents are going to be parents and protect their children. I got to keep you inside. I can't have you out there running around. So now the kids are in the house, so parents are saying, well, my kids are bored. I need to keep them entertained. So now their kids are on these video games or on their phones because the parents rather have them inside than outside. So now you're protecting
as a way to safeguard them, right? As a protective measure to say, hey, it's better that we know where you're at. You're inside. You're safe in that sense.
But now we're setting them up for something else. Meanwhile, while they're in the house, I always tell parents, we have a fire detector. So there's a fire, if it goes off, carbon monoxide, we have locks on the door. But there is still a stranger that's able to access your house without being detected. And they're like, well, please explain to us, how does that happen? And when we start talking about the tablets, the phones, the games, the people from around the world, not just in Philadelphia, a stranger from down the block or from another state could access your home by one of those games. And before you know it, your child is being exploited and becoming a victim to someone who entered your home without being detected.
Yeah. And have you, as your team has walked with young people, have you heard stories of these kinds of situations happening? Like where perhaps something unravels in an online connection and it becomes really dangerous?
Yeah, often, a lot of times, what I love about the influence program in the classes that we have, it creates a safe space for young people to open up and be vulnerable in a positive way, to say, this has happened to me, whether they say it in front of the group or to one of the staff members at the Lighthouse, say, hey, can I speak to you? And a lot of times people will think that young ladies are, and they are falling victim to this, but they're surprised to find out that a lot of young men are falling victim to this. What they call it being catfished, thinking you're speaking to a woman, and now you have body parts and your body all over the internet. And now folks are coming back saying, hey, you better find a way to send us some money or we're going to put you out there. And now you have a young man who's thinking about suicide, thinking about hurting himself because he doesn't want to be exposed of the things that he was doing online. So it gets dangerous and it's sad. And sometimes you get the so-called coolest kids that's supposed to be the famous kids in the school or in the neighborhood. And to find out that they're opening up saying, man, I was caught up in this. Someone was reaching out or someone was trying to meet me and do that. So,
yeah, I think I've been surprised to see some of the data that has been coming back from the influence programming led by your team in Kensington, because I think it paints this portrait really of increased, like, heightened vulnerability against kind of the average nationwide. Like, I think if I remember right, as much as 70% of young people who entered into the influence workshops at the start, as we helped them understand what exploitation looks like, as much as 70% of them said, yeah, I've already experienced something like this online. Yeah. And I think that was pretty shocking to me. And
disturbing.
I think, yeah. And it's sad, right? Like, for all the reasons that you just said, where it's like, we have young people carrying this weight, and without the proper tools that they need to be able to disclose that and find support with it, it just becomes this thing that festers and really can lead to more dangerous things like self-harm. And I think, yes, I'm so grateful that your team is so bought in with influence, and that's been a great tool to help walk with young people, and also to help parents understand what you mean when you say, hey, listen, you could have all the locks on the door, but you're still allowing access to your child through this phone. Yeah. I'm curious to know, are there any stories that come to mind for you of conversations with parents, a parent specifically, or even a conversation with a student that you could share about?
One of our students, your team, was able to meet at one time a young lady who's still part of the Lighthouse. We keep close. She experienced some trafficking when she thought she was speaking to family members online, and later on, and she went missing. So folks thought she ran away because she had a little history for running away. And the news and everyone was involved trying to find this young lady. And next, she was in another state. Weeks later, she was located. A lot of things were brought out about what happened and how that happened, but it all started online. That young lady is back in Philadelphia. She's part of our programs. But the sad part was, we wish she had influence before that happened to her. But she had an opportunity to be a part of the influence program, and it just opened up so many things. And she even said it to me one time, saying, I wish I took this class before that ever happened to me. But she's taking it now, right? And now she has friends, and she gets to speak to her friends and her classmates, and always bring someone else to join the Exodus Road as far as our influence program.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Edwin. And of course, thanks to your team for all that they're doing to walk alongside the kids in your community. I want to pivot a little bit, and I think I would love to invite you to reflect on what it's been like to be learning about human trafficking in the work with the Exodus Road, and how that has maybe open your eyes to like trafficking in the Kensington community? So we've talked about online exploitation, but is human trafficking a danger that like adults or young people, children are facing in Kensington? And how have you evolved your understanding there?
Yeah, being a part of the Exodus Road gave me so much language, just like these parents and these kids, to human trafficking, slavery. A lot of times you could grow up thinking things are myths or no longer exist. When you think slavery no longer exists, or trafficking, you think it just happens in a movie when this stuff is a reality. In our community, or after being exposed to so many different things, what I mean is exposed to information, learning and growing within the Exodus Road. Coming back to my community, I'm looking around and it's kind of like, felt like the movie The Matrix now. I felt like when I got into the Exodus Road, you guys gave me that one pill and now I got to see life for what it is, or I could go on, if I wanted to say I don't want to be a part of this and learn. But it's like taking that one pill so you could be more alert and more aware of your surroundings. And me coming back down to Philadelphia after learning so much about trafficking and how people are vulnerable to it, and especially my people down in my community. As far as like the drug trade, let's go back to influence. When you have a kid now who's being blackmailed, and now you might not be able to give up the money, but guess what? Now you have to come and work for us. Now you have to sell these drugs for us. Now you have to sit up in this, what they call it, trap houses. Now you have to sit there and bag up the drugs and make it, right? You have no choice. Now you have a good kid who's never been exposed to the streets, but now he's in the streets and the word is trafficked, right? Because a lot of times he doesn't know or understand he's being trafficked. People think he's being bullied or forced. No, it's trafficking. It's slavery, right? Yeah. Or a young lady being caught online, being exposed, and now she has to come out and do certain things because she doesn't want anybody to know. So
coerced to do other things as a form of blackmail.
Yeah. Oh, so it's on so many different levels in our community. And at the same time, if our kids are not busy with our sports or anything else, if they get hooked on these drugs, matter of fact, I just talked to you before the show, how you said you were up in the morning because of the kiddos. Being a parent of young babies, you understand the importance of baby proofing your home, right? As
best as we can, man. My 2-year-old she's a genius.
Yeah. So we put the plastic stuff in the socket. We put the gate by the stairway. We do so many things, but people forget that our kids get older and we need to baby proof our community. Because if not, they're going to fall into these gangs. They're going to fall into the drugs. They're going to fall into the trafficking. Learning more about the influence curriculum and the program is part of baby proofing your community. How do you protect it?
Totally. Yeah. We've been using this language and really trying to paint this picture of exactly what you're describing. So for so long, and I was a child in the 90s, so like I grew up with the DARE program and with Moms Against Drugs and all the things, right? Like, and so I've seen all of the efforts, and certainly we all remember the efforts to protect kids in the physical neighborhoods that we all take part in every day. But what we don't realize is now the neighborhood where our kids spend the most amount of their time is in the online world. And we have to start talking about like digital neighborhoods and digital safeguards. And we have to bring the same level of attention and critique and legislation and funding to be able to address it there, because that is the new neighborhood in so many ways. And the other thing that we've been saying and really helping parents to understand is this idea of like, when you name something, you disarm it. So for so many, they don't understand, perhaps they don't have the language to know what trafficking looks like or what online exploitation looks like. And so that thing has power over them in so many ways. But when you learn to be able to name it, you actually take some of that power back. Mm-hmm. And even the thing that once you know what it is, if like take sextortion or like online grooming, for example, if you name it, and by naming it, I mean, you literally know how to name it and talk about it with your kid, but you also know how to talk about like the red flags that point That's to right. it and the signs that it's taking place, all of those things. When you get to this place that you name it, you suddenly are equipped to be able to avoid it and to recognize it, and it disarms that. And I think if we can do that, that's the probably the single most significant pathway to really seeing the tide change and seeing some of these safety measures come into our digital neighborhoods as well.
Yeah. And at the same time, what I do love about the influence program, as far as like the curriculum where we gear it towards adults, it makes it easy for them to understand because, you know, in the area where I'm from, their grandparents raising these kids, not just grandparents. Some of the parents are not tech savvy, so they're intimidated. They're not knowing what's going on, but the way it's delivered, so they can understand some of the lingo, some of the language, and they're like, "Wow, I get that. Now I understand. Now I know what to look for." And that is so key. That is so important that those parents are not left behind with that information. It's put on the level for them to really understand, right? Gives it language for them. And it also encourages them to also catch up in the tech world a little bit, you know, just enough to protect their children. Yeah.
We can't operate with blind leading the blind. That's not going to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as we're going to start to come to a close here, but I'd love to ask you a few things. One, in this work, especially in nonprofit work, there are always stories that will stick with you about, oh my gosh, like that was a moment when we made a big difference. And I wonder, like, even outside of influence and all that, just thinking about your time at Lighthouse, like, take us in, tell me a story that is like, this was like earth shattering, or like really shaping. Like this is a moment that will always stick with Edwin from his leadership time.
Yeah, I have those moments, and sometimes I think because I'm getting older, I'm more emotional. So I find myself with a little teardrop, and it's good tears, right? Because you see something, and a lot of our community events, we could average anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 people, sometimes even more, where folks are coming out to the Lighthouse to enjoy some festivities. And what sticks out to me is the little things, right? But it's a big thing to me, where you have neighbors who have lived on the same block, for about 15 years, never spoke to each other.
Yeah.
Now they're speaking to each other. You live on my block, don't you? Yes. You drive this car? Yeah, I drive that. Now they're getting to know each other. And now, if you fast forward a little bit, that one parent saying, hey, Miss Williams couldn't make it in today, so we're going to be bringing her child with us, to soccer or to flag football, where we're building community. To me, that's a start. Where we need to get back to communicating. There was some type of disconnect after COVID, where folks weren't speaking to each other anymore. And even before that, a little bit with the crime and the opioid epidemic. But now families are being able to communicate with each other. And that builds safety, right? Because if one takes any of our programs, like the influence program, they're going to refer or recommend it to that family. Like, I want them to know about it. And they're going to be our best liaison. They're going to be speaking for us. You need to take this. You need to know about this program. It's the word of mouth that really counts to do that. So to me, that one moment where the families are speaking to each other, because it also prevents violence. It prevents a misunderstanding, because at the Lighthouse Field, there's so many different ethnicities, different religions, different races that are all in the field. They're on the field being human beings, and we forget to be human. And to me, that it's a beautiful thing. And the last one was, and I mentioned this earlier, the kids were playing basketball one time in the summertime, running back and forth on the basketball court. And on the other side, there's a fence, and we had two large horses just running back and forth. It looked like they were mimicking the kids running back and forth on the court. And I thought to myself, where do you see that? In the hood in North Philadelphia. And where do you see it? The Lighthouse. And that's the aha moment for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds to me like, even as you describe, neighbors meeting each other on the field, meeting each other at Lighthouse, and then leading from there. You said at the beginning, but Lighthouse is this tool for helping ships pass through troubled waters or dangerous waters. And I think it's striking to me because it's as if
you as the Lighthouse Foundation and your team, you send people away to be like miniature lighthouses themselves in their community, to carry with them the skill sets that they need to help the family next door or the kids next door or their street navigate what can be troubled waters sometimes. And that's a really beautiful thing. You guys are amazing. And
thank you.
I have such love and appreciation for the Lighthouse team and for you, of course.
Listen, another aha moment is you guys are in the Midwest, right? Colorado Springs and everywhere else. And the relationship is not just a relationship. It's not a working relationship. The relationship between the Lighthouse and the Exodus Road and our community with your community. And when you guys come down, anytime I'm flying out to Colorado Springs or the Midwest, everyone's, tell Preston I say hello, tell Sarah, tell Laura. It's a beautiful thing because it's the name, right? You remember their names. And your team is always remembering everyone's names, even the kids, which is a beautiful thing. And it just goes to show that community has no real boundaries, right? Community could be you.
Yep. All right, brother. It's been a gift to get to talk with you. How can people learn more about what the Lighthouse Foundation is doing? I'd love for you to kind of give a plug there.
Yeah, our website is Lighthouse 1893. We're on Facebook with Lighthouse 1893, Instagram, Lighthouse 1893, and you can really follow and see what's going on. If you're ever in Philadelphia, you're always welcome. Reach out to us. We'll set it out.
Go find those 14 acres.
Yep. We'll take you on a tour to see everything that's going on.
And I will make sure to drop all of the links and information in the show notes here as well. But Edwin, it has been such a great pleasure. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
This has been Until All Are Free. I'm your host, Preston Goff. This podcast is produced by The Exodus Road, a global anti-human trafficking nonprofit organization with a vision for a world where no human is ever bought, sold, or exploited. If you're curious to learn more about what it's like to fight human trafficking worldwide, to hear from investigators on the front lines of this issue, to hear from trauma-informed aftercare professionals, to hear from survivors themselves, you can learn more about all of our work by visiting theexodusroad.com. We're also at The Exodus Road on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, all the major things. If this episode moved you, I want to invite you to share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. And of course, you can find and follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes come out every other Friday. And one last thing, if you've not had a chance to join our community on social media, we have new Until All Are Free social channels on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube. And it's a space where I'm regularly posting clips from these episodes, but also behind the scenes content and teasers of what's coming next. I'm even polling and working with the community there to really determine what the next stories that we're going to cover on Until All Are Free look like. So if you want to have a voice in that and help shape the future of this podcast, I'd invite you to come and join us there. Just search Until All Are Free podcast on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. Until next time, thanks for listening.